This week we're going to be making pancakes. If you choose to use a box of pancake mix, that's totally fine, like this quick or whatever. I'm going to show you how to make them from scratch, which might be easier if you don't have the pre-made mix because it's probably ingredients that you might already have in your pantry. So the ingredients we need are flour, sugar, baking powder, and salt. And then we need milk, which I'm using almond milk, but you can use whatever kind of milk you have. You're going to need 1 egg and some oil. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mix the dry ingredients into my bowl, and I'm going to demonstrate the measuring techniques for that. So I need 1 cup of all-purpose flour. So I always use a scoop to get the flour out of my canister and lightly fill my cup until it's overflowing. And then I'm wondering if anybody knows what I need to do next. 6th graders, this might be news to you, but what you need to use is the back of a butter knife or a flat edge spatula to level off your 1 cup of flour. And then you can add that to your bowl. So I'm adding the 1 cup of flour. Next thing is 2 tablespoons of sugar. So I'm gonna use the 1 tablespoon, and we're also gonna level this off. We wanna fill it and level it. That's the proper measuring technique for dry ingredients. So there's 1 tablespoon, and then I'm gonna fill it, level it, and add it in. Next ingredient is 2 teaspoons of baking powder. It is different than baking soda, so just double check that. So I need 2 teaspoons, and this is my teaspoon. I'm gonna take the lid off, and I'm gonna do the same thing. I wanna fill it, and I want to level it off. So it didn't really fill all the way. There's 1 teaspoon and another teaspoon. I've got my recipe on my iPad over here to the right of me, my left, I mean. So there is my 2nd teaspoon of baking powder. So the next thing I need to add is a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So I'm gonna get my 1/2 teaspoon measuring spoon here. I'm gonna put a little salt in there. You're gonna fill that and level it as well. I'm just gonna fill it so it's, there you go, 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And we're gonna whisk together the ingredients. So we wanna incorporate them with a whisk. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna use our wet ingredients, which we are gonna combine into a separate bowl. So it says we need to whisk together the milk, oil, and egg. You could use melted butter, but I'm just gonna use oil. It says we need 1 cup of milk, which I need a liquid measuring cup for. When you're measuring liquids, you always wanna set it down and measure it at eye level. So you want it on a flat surface. I'm gonna check it at eye level while I pour the milk in to the 1 cup line. And then once it's level with that 1 cup line, I can pour that into my bowl. You know what? I'm just gonna leave it right in here instead of getting another bowl dirty. The next thing we need to add is 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil. So I've got my vegetable oil here. I've got my tablespoon. Measuring spoons can be used for dry ingredients and wet ingredients, as well as moist and solid. So I'm gonna use this to fill up my 1 tablespoon. And then I'm gonna do that again. This oil makes so it doesn't really stick when you're cooking the pancakes, although we will be cooking them in butter too. So I've got my oil, and then I need to do 1 egg, which when I crack my egg, I always like to crack it into something separate, like a custard cup, or in this case, I have just a small bowl here. When you crack an egg, you just gently tap it on the edge of the bowl until you have a little crack. Gently poke your thumb into the hole, and then slowly pull the egg apart. You just wanna check to make sure there's no eggshells in there. And you can actually see the different parts of the egg, which you learned about last week for our egg lesson. So I'm gonna add that to my liquids. I'm gonna wash my hands because that's always important after you handle raw egg. So I'm gonna poke that yolk so it scrambles nicely. When it looks a light yellow color, you can tell it's done because it means the egg yolk is pretty well incorporated. So it says mix the milk, butter, oil, and egg. And then we're gonna add it to the dry mixture. So I am going to put a little hole in the middle of my dry ingredients. And then I'm gonna pour the wet ingredients in. And then I'm gonna combine it together. Place it in the sink. You don't want to overmix your batter. That's one thing you want to keep in mind. You don't want to overmix it. You want to combine it until there's not a lot of lumps and there's not a lot of dry ingredients left.
Heat your skillet over medium heat and add butter and spread it around evenly over the pan. I use a 1/4 cup to pour the batter onto the skillet. That way all of the pancakes are even in size. You don't want to try to flip them until you see a lot of air bubbles rising up from the pancake. Once they're flipped, they'll only need another minute or so until they are done. You can check the pancake by flipping it over. If it's golden brown, you know they're done. Now they're ready to serve for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Enjoy!